Hey guys, welcome back. I know it's been a minute. I have gone through some big life changes throughout the holidays and haven't been able to do one of these videos in a while. So if you are still subscribed and tuning in and watching this, I really appreciate you and your loyalty. I know, it's probably been a rocky time for everybody. Some major transits happening, Saturn and Jupiter moving into the unexpected sign of Aquarius, which brings all kinds of unexpected circumstances. We really can't control what's going on around us. And unfortunately, with that, it's not even worth you trying. So I'm having to realize a lot of that in my own life, just trusting that there is a flow. We may not always be in it, but we can try to work with it as best as we can and just kind of trust what is coming up for us, So we're really being challenged to just become adaptable. Fixed air is a really hard kind of thing to work with. It pushes us in a very strong way when it comes to concepts and ideas. And so we can really change the way we see things, the way we perceive reality even. Our entire consciousness is kind of having this glow up, if you will, with Jupiter and Saturn. And it is, it's not easy. Luckily, Jupiter's in the mix to make it a little more appealing. But, wherever Saturn is, we know that hard times come with it. So hopefully you are staying strong and embracing your weird. We want to do that right now because you could probably even profit off of it if you guys are moving into your own line of work, whether you're doing tarot, astrology, things like that, or just even with work in general, adapting new belief systems, new models of operation. This is a real chance to start innovating. So that ties into this segment about Mars pretty well. Mars is kind of how we put our best foot forward, or what our best foot forward even looks like. Mars is how we start. It's linked to our childhood. So those memories, those things that maybe we haven't overcome that have followed us since birth, tend to come up in small ways whenever Mars is going through a transit. It links us back to our most young self. So Mars and Taurus is a very young part of us. Taurus is only the second sign in the zodiac, and so we're still dealing with growing up in a very early stage of life, if you will, where we all have this opportunity to plant some major seeds that can really grow to be something spectacular with this transit. So we dealt with Mars and Aries for a while, a long time, and I think with all the new stuff that was going on, last year with COVID, with Black Lives Matter, not that stuff is new, but it really had staying power. And so we see that if Mars is in a very concentrated energy like Aries, like I said, these are the signs of disruption, so you just have to work with it. Mars is a very disruptive sign naturally. It brings about kind of this kid energy where it's kind of hard to ignore. And the more that you do, the more loud, obnoxious, the more they'll cry, kind of a thing. And so it puts all of us in a very strange situation where we do actually have to attend to the needs that are coming up, because it's fire energy. And so fire energy asks us to be very straightforward, to basically not hold back, to trust your instincts. And in the sign of Taurus, that's muddled a little bit because Taurus isn't very quick to move. Taurus is fixed earth. And so we're dealing with a very slow moving energy with a planet that, has the capacity to bring about war, conflict, because it doesn't have a stillness, an innate sense of peace internally. Mars is a very frustrating energy to work with. But it pushes us to take risks, to take opportunities, again, to put our best foot forward, or maybe our loudest foot forward, if you will. Those fire energies can really kind of be abrasive, if the timing isn't right. They just kind of push through stuff. And yeah, so Mars and Taurus, kind of disrupting the peace. That's kind of what it seems like so far, right? So that's kind of what we have here with all right, okay, back to it. So this transit is going to be going from January 6th to March 4th, so it's got about 2 solid months to change signs. And coming from Mars in Aries, which took a very long time, including its retrograde, which happened in that sign, and its home sign is probably its most impactful place. This is going to be a little lighter on us. Not that it isn't going to be noticeable. These transits always are, and since Mars was in Aries for so long, it definitely is going to be noticeable, the shift. But Taurus is kind of our comfort, the things that help us relax, whether they're material objects or it's a number in your bank account. It's stuff that gives us a peace of mind because it's structure. And so when Mars comes in, it kind of alters that structure a little bit. It shows you that there are still problems with those things that you have in your life, because Mars pushes us to take action. So if it finds itself in a sign where usually things are good and solid and all that, then that indicates that there's a chance that they're not right now. And so Mars moving into Taurus is going to be showing us how we're shortchanging kind of our surroundings, where the cracks are, where the problems are lurking, the conflict. So if you are already kind of running into some combative energy with people around you, or just like you can't relax in your environment because there's a lot of disruptive stuff going on, as it's happening right now, that is kind of what we can expect. That is just Mars doing its thing. And so, I think the bigger message of that is Taurus wants us to relax, wants us to enjoy our accomplishments, wants us to keep building, but it's very slow progress. And so if we have a disruptor energy in there, that shows that where should we be? It's like realigning. God, man, I had a really good nugget of information there, and it just kind of disappeared. So, I don't know if that's going to be the theme as we move forward with this energy, but if there is conflict, if there is frustration, it's probably telling us, because what we've been building, what we've been trying to attain for ourselves, isn't as solid as we think it is. And so it's not like everything is good and then Mars comes into play and now everything's bad. That's not how it works. It's just these planets are giving us opportunities to strengthen, to take care of, to resolve, things like that. And so, with Taurus already having so much of that unexpected stuff with Uranus in there, it will be for a few more years. Mars really shakes it up too when it comes in there. So Taurus, our finances, our savings, our material possessions, maybe our collections, stuff that we're proud of, but it's not necessarily on display for everybody like the fixed Leo energy. It's more so the earth stuff that maybe if we have people over that they notice, or maybe it's more work related, it's earth sign. So this can really hit us where we usually feel the most secure, the most grounded. And so you can very well feel like the earth shake under you when we have this Mars in there. You just feel like, okay, I don't know where to turn to for comfort, for stability, for security. I had this exact feeling yesterday. It was very, very chaotic of a transition for me personally. I had just stepped foot in a new home in a place that I've never lived before, and yesterday was just such a jarring, frustrating energy that I had to just kind of run with. And it really shows how those two signs, those two energies really don't work well together. And you know, it is what it is. I mean, we can't really force the universe's hand. These things are all predetermined, or they're all moving in their own way regardless of how we feel. We just have to work with it somehow. So, they all have their own lessons, but this one is really challenging us to find new structure, to find new things that can give us some comfort, some sense of ease, and maybe you have to build them for your own, whether that is like starting new routines, starting a new investing app, or changing banks. Redecorating is huge. This is your physical environment we're talking about when we talk about Taurus. So this one is very noticeable because it is the material world. So when we see shifts in this sign, it can be very clearly pinpointed to, it's not emotion, it's not spirit, it's not things like that. It is physical. So when we work with the earth houses and we have those signs, odds are they tend to be a lot more in your face, or a lot more tangible. You can actually like point to them and be like, no, this is that thing that's changing in my life right now because of this transit. It's not something that's going on internally. It's around me. And so that's kind of what we see when we see this stuff. And Mars and Taurus, again, only being the second sign in the zodiac, has got a whole revolution to go. Mars and Aries was the start of that. And so whenever we see that, Mars is in essence, kind of our birthright. It's us starting over with a fresh perspective, with some vitality, some eagerness to just prove ourselves, and to kind of talk ourselves up, to kind of get a little bit of an ego boost, and so Mars and Taurus transitions that unfiltered ego from Mars and Aries, and it makes it more mature, makes it more adult, it makes it more tangible. So now we have physical things that we want to talk about, we want to change. I do not know how well you guys can see me in this because the light is very bright here in Sedona, so I'm going to change this real quick. Maybe I can do this. I do not know if that helped at all. Okay. Maybe it should be over here. I really, really wish I knew if there was a way I could pause these videos, because I so often want to. I haven't been able to find out if that's possible. Okay, that looks a little better. So that was a perfect example of what this transit is. It's changing my physical environment. It's changing the look, if you will. So there you go. I'm going to leave that in there just because otherwise I have to start over from scratch, and I feel like maybe there was some good stuff that we've already mentioned. But let's get into it. So this being the sign of finances obviously means that there are likely changes to your savings, anything that you've kind of been building over time, because Taurus is signified by the mountain. It's very hard to move. Mars will try to shake it up, but Taurus is built very strong. And so luckily, any initial scares that you have to your savings or your paychecks or anything like that get resolved. You may, have to yell at your boss or fight over something. Money disputes are very natural with this combination, but I think ultimately, Taurus will outweigh kind of Mars getting in the mix because it's just a little more mature. So we'll see that. So I feel like this is really just about slow progress. I feel like Mars and Aries showed us the changes that we need to make in our lives, and maybe you guys have already jumped and made a big change. But in Taurus is more about settling in. Now it's about decorating, it's making it more personal. It is, really just building that structure, and that is a parallel to my own life and what's going on now that I've found myself in a new place. So there is kind of this explorative vibe about it. It is Venus, so it's very much about finding pleasurable things, whether it's just the look of something, the taste, the feel, indulging our senses, and Venus is the sign of, or the planet of love. And so this can, bring about some physical contact because Taurus is a very physical sign. So maybe you've even got some of that heating up for you. But essentially, I do want to talk about how this is going to be moving throughout this time period. So January 6th to March 4th. So again, I'm going to change my physical environment here now that I'm outside and it's a little warmer. But it's gorgeous though. I really can't complain. So we are starting off this transit with some really, really major squares, and I think you guys probably know what a square is by now, but it is a, it's a 90 degrees, not fun aspect in astrology. So squares happen when, they are in signs that are of the same modality. So this will be, Taurus is a fixed sign, and these squares are going to be happening in Aquarius, and Saturn and Jupiter just moved in there. And so Saturn and Jupiter are making a square to Mars right off the bat. And as well as Pluto and Mercury, which are at the very tail end of Capricorn. So they're within an orb that basically keeps that square effect because Mars is so early in on Taurus. So I hope that all makes sense. But if we're starting off a transit with Pluto, Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter all basically restricting one tiny planet of energy, Mars, that shows us that there are a lot of bigger, more long-term things that we have to really give our attention, while Mars is screaming for its own sense of attention. It's like Mars is like, no, but I really want to start something new here. I really want to redecorate. I really want to just buy some stuff. I'm tired of the look of things around me. But all of these other planets that are in more advanced signs are like, no. How are you with work right now? Saturn, Jupiter, have you really started traveling and connecting to people around the globe, around your state, around your city? Are you networking? Are you really trying to kind of evolve your own scope of your existence? It's very philosophical concerns. Or are you going back to school? Maybe you guys are considering doing some schooling stuff. And then we have Pluto. Pluto is still in the mix, and as we saw with 2020, had a lot to say. So Pluto wants to make sure that this evolution, this incarnation of yourself, is on point, is what you really need. before it kind of makes things easier for you. And then we have Mercury. Mercury is very fast moving, so it's the least impactful of all these. But it does rule our mind, our conscious mind, our day-to-day mind. It's the things that we rely on to get through the days. Conversations, communications, movement, so small movement. So without it, we would not be able to live properly. But Mercury squaring Mars is our instincts are very different from kind of like what we're trying to do, what we're consciously thinking about. And so with that aspect, I think we'll get these like sudden impulses to straighten something, to change the look of something, to spend some money. Like these are very urge heavy needs. And for once, Mercury is kind of like being like, oh, but do you really need that? It's being the responsible questioner. So Mercury is going to make you ask yourself a question right after you get this sudden urge. And so it's kind of checking itself. And I think we can think a lot more for Virgo sharing the ruling of that planet than Gemini, but Gemini loves to ask questions. So that's kind of nice. So starting off with like 4 very major squares, shows you how disruptive Mars can be, right? Because it's like, as the world is working on this area, here's the little kid of the zodiac being like, no, me, it's my turn to shine, look at me. It's kind of like the kid getting on the slide at recess or something, and no one is looking in its direction at all, and it's just going to be trying harder and harder to get that focus. And so I think the challenge is, if you feel like those efforts are futile and they're not really worth the energy, the output that come with it, then why do it? Taurus is a little more private than Aries. And so I think we'll become a little more calculated with where we need to shout for attention or for even help, because Aries and Mars can be very demanding. Taurus is more self-reliant. It wants to build its own world. It wants to be more involved in the things that is happening, curating its own lifestyle, if you will. So I would say kind of the most noticeable transits that we have during this transit are going to be when Mars comes really close to Uranus, which is starting out in a conjunction. Conjunctions are where they share energies, right? So Uranus has been in the sign of Taurus at a very early degree, and so Mars is quickly coming right on top of that. And Mars and Uranus are bringing this very unexpected change. These urges that we have. You may even come up with like 10, 20 reasons as to why to do them, because Uranus is the thinker. It's like the solution-oriented part of the mind that wants to fix the problems, and so wherever Mars comes in to that, it kind of powers up the other energy. So Mars gives us the tenacity to be bold and to just blurt it out. And so we have, this, I don't know if it's opportunity, but we're going to have this urgency to say really strange things that may sound very solid in our minds, but when they come out, they're so off kilter and so off-putting that other people are like, what did he just say? Kind of a thing. And so, yeah, these instincts and urges are going to be very unfamiliar. And if you've never had them before, maybe you're getting some feelings that you haven't experienced in a long time, and you're just like, whoa, I really don't feel like myself. And that is very much Uranus. It's very detached. It's removed from the self. And so when we have the sign of the ego coming into that, it's a very strange dichotomy, but they do have a lot of similarities nevertheless. But we're not going to get into all of that too much. That's going to be happening very soon, within a few days here. January 20th will be the day that it will be right on top of Uranus, and the moon will be right in there too. So that, I feel like, is going to be our first noticeable date during this period, where we've got Mars, Uranus, and the moon right squish into each other. You know, the moon moves very, very fast, but it brings out emotions, you know, things that have to do with those energies. And so really watch the money around that time, because you have Mars, which is frustrations, which, for there to be frustrations, there has to be some kind of action that occurs, right? So maybe there's some money management, because Uranus is getting us to invest in very long-term things, to grow our own businesses, you know, to do stuff like that. And the moon can sometimes bring out the problems with those things. It can be like, uh-oh, you know, we didn't check this box, or we didn't really think that one through. You know, and so definitely look around January 20th be very cautious around that time. And then the sun will also be squaring at that time too, so that's problematic in itself. You know, the sun is usually very supportive of where Mars is. They work really well together. But that indicates to me that, like, we're not going to feel like we have enough to really do what we want to do at that time. So really, really be careful on your guard. Yeah. February 6th through the 7th, Mars will be sextiling Neptune. So I think that is kind of the first good position that we have in the mix during this time period. So Mars sextiling Neptune, you know, very alive energy with very asleep energy is a strange combination, but they do come in tandem. You know, one comes right before the other, and it can feel like this reawakening a little bit around that time, where Neptune is asking us to kind of put some of our more selfish concerns to bed, you know, and so because I think with Mars and Taurus, we can get really fixed onto something. You know, we can be hard to talk into. We can become very stubborn, very strong-willed. And so maybe that's the first thing that happens, where Neptune is like, okay, no, this is exhausting, exerting this much energy. Let's just put this to rest, you know? And so hopefully, because that's a more positive aspect, a sextile, that allows us to turn to spirituality, or maybe a drug-induced experience, something like that, to take us away from our money concerns and how much we still have to go. We're seeing how distant, how much energy our future requires. And Neptune is like, okay, but, you know, go in and find inner peace, go in and connect to something higher, because we can't be looking at this and concerned about this 24/7. So, you know, that's very supportive. At the same time, Venus is going to be squaring Mars around February 6th to 7th, a little after that. And Venus will be squaring Mars for pretty much this entire transit after that period. So that is a little problematic, because Venus is a ruler of Taurus, and so it almost seems like Taurus is fighting itself. Like Mars is bringing out this combative energy. It's trying to force Taurus's hand, and like, hey, let's spend money on us. I really want this thing, or I really want to do this. And Venus squaring is like, no, this isn't what we really need in the long term. And so that can also mean that the females out there are really going to be at odds with the males, or people that identify as either of those two genders will kind of be going head to head a little bit. They're going to find it harder to work with each other, you know, and so it kind of seems like a battle of the sexes around Valentine's Day this year, where we have our carnal, more sexual energy needs to be physical. And then we have Venus, which I believe will maybe let's talk a little more online first before we meet up, or let's do a virtual date, or let's do something like that. And Mars is just like, but I just want to, I just want a bone. So that's a little frustrating too. Be an interesting Valentine's Day to be still in COVID times, where we really can't be physical or intimate like we normally can. February 9th, Pluto trines Mars. So that's pretty supportive. Pluto is very much Scorpio's planet, and that is a sign that has a lot of things in tandem with Mars. So they kind of seem like they have the same agenda, but Scorpio and Pluto have the tenacity to work harder in the background and over time, whereas Mars gets tired very quick. And so Pluto's like, oh, I got you, bud. If you feel like you're running low on energy before that transit, beginning of February, then Pluto's going to be like, no, you're good. You're finding out the right things, and you deserve, a helping hand. Or Pluto really shows us kind of what other people should be giving us. It can't get it for itself because it's opposite Taurus. Taurus is what we earn for ourselves. Scorpio, opposite Taurus, is how do we get things from other people? And to the worst degree, that means stealing, doing things that aren't becoming of us. But this really feels like, someone is trying to lend a helping hand out to a kid, Scorpio and Mars. So that's nice, whether it's a family member, just somebody that you know or work well with. Around February 9th, you can kind of see some of that happening. And then the end of February moves out of square with Jupiter, so it won't be in a square with Saturn for too long either. Saturn's a lot slower. And then Jupiter, it comes out of that square because Jupiter can kind of keep up with it for a while. They're both fire energies, right? But towards the end of February, Jupiter will be released from that square, or vice versa, because really they say the more outer lying planet, which would be Jupiter as opposed to Mars in this case, has the reins whenever there's a transit involving two planets. So Jupiter will allow us to kind of be happier again, be freer. So if you feel like there's going to be a lot of rules, structure, all that Taurus heavy stuff, because as much as we love the pleasurable things, the finer things in life, when we see Taurus, it doesn't mean that they're easy to attain. We still have to put in the work. And Taurus is a very hands-on kind of sign, so it feels like it's a lot of physical exertion, whether you are really doing things physically or not, like yard work, or you're just working longer hours, stuff like that. It brings with it this feeling that it does require more of you than it normally would, where Mars is concerned. So exciting stuff there. I know this has been an interesting video, kind of had to make some adjustments. I do want to see if we can get a card to kind of sum this up, maybe give us another insight into this transit. So let's see. Wow, really quick. Hey, Mars and Taurus, perfect. Yep, that's the one, King of Pentacles. So this guy really is very much Mars and Taurus energy. He wants it his way. He's very much in tune with how things should look, how they should feel, how they should smell, all the senses. It's like your senses are getting a fine tune. It's like your physical body is going into the doctor, and it's not that it's getting healed, but it's getting everything cleansed. It's like getting you back to where you can interact with the physical realm a lot easier. You know what I mean? And so things are sharper. Things are like, you're just more aware of stuff. So King of Pentacles means slow movement. So slow progress, like I said. But this can be, very hard to work with. So if you come across a King of Pentacles kind of person, this is a more masculine person that is kind of inflexible, and they have the money, they have the thing that you need, and you have to do things their way. in a sense, before you can really get out or move on, you know? And so this is somebody that really pushes you to conform, maybe even restricts you to some degrees. It doesn't allow you the opportunity to act on your impulses and urges. And so Mars really doesn't like that. So this can be a very frustrating card if you're not the one that's better off. So look out for this person, this energy as we move throughout the month, but know that this is attainable for all of us. We can call the shots in our own life. We, you know, even if we don't have what we physically want or need, we still have the say so. So look at this card as like kind of a tool of self-empowerment. It's like, I can always make it happen if I try to. Yeah. So putting our money where our mouth is a big theme for this transit. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm sorry for the adjustment mid on and the noises to begin with. But as I said, you know, in time, it will get easier, more relaxing. That's Mars just starts off very strong and disruptive, right? So give it some time. And if you want your own reading, reach out to me on Tarot with Tyler Instagram, and we can DM each other and get you scheduled for that. There's a lot of big changes that 2021 is bringing, and I'm excited to share them with you and where they're going to play out in your chart. So definitely hit me up about that, and stay tuned, stay subscribed, more to come. All right. Thanks, guys.